Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Magnificent Marriage Podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today. My hope, my prayer is that you will be blessed because of the time that we spend together. My hope is that you will be inspired to live a marriage that is happy and healthy and holy. A marriage that is the way that God intended it to be from the very beginning. That is my hope, my prayer for you today and for us today. Over the last several weeks, we have been looking at individual factors that people bring to marriage that either bodes well or doesn't bode so well for the marriage. And today we are turning our attention to those relationship factors that contribute to or detract from our marriages and our relationships. And so, what I hope to do today is look at a couple of factors out of the five main ones, the most highly correlated with marital satisfaction and commitment. And let's take a look at those. Let me share my screen with you. And today we're going to be looking at marital satisfaction and marital commitment. Now, these aren't the top two, but I wanted to put them together because of the way they function in our marriages and relationships, but they are both in the top five. So let's look at the five altogether. So there's perceived partner marital satisfaction that contributes to our own marital satisfaction and commitment, and perceived partner marital commitment contributes to our satisfaction and commitment within our marriage. So the way that we perceive our partner's satisfaction and commitment affects our commitment and satisfaction. And then the third factor is appreciation. We're going to talk about that today, but we're also going to talk about that next week. And then we're going to be talking about sexual satisfaction in marriage, one of the top five predictors of marital satisfaction and commitment. And then we're going to talk about conflict management. These are the five top predictors of marital satisfaction and commitment in this huge study by Samantha Joel from Western University in London, Ontario, that came out in 2020. Easy for me to say. And so what I want to do today is put these first two together, perceived partner marital satisfaction and perceived marital commitment, and how they affect our own commitment and satisfaction. So let's look at, first of all, what is marital satisfaction? How would you define that? Well, there might be lots of different ways that we can define that. Marital satisfaction, maybe just how happy we are with our marriage, how much joy we have in our marriage. But here is the scientific definition, or one scientific definition of it. Marital satisfaction is the mental state that reflects the perceived benefits and costs of marriage to a particular person. So, according to this definition, which is not a bad definition, and I think it's a good working definition for us, it's the perceived benefits versus the costs of marriage. According to this definition, when we think about marital satisfaction, what we're doing is a cost-benefit analysis. So what does that look like? Well, what it looks like is when we see that a relationship is costing us more than we are benefiting from it. In other words, the value of the relationship is very low because it's costing us a lot, but we're not getting a lot of benefit, then we're going to be very slowly satisfied. So if you're looking at this chart, you can see that the high cost or the low benefit would be here, and also it would be low satisfaction. But if we get a lot of benefit from the relationship, then it would come out here to a very high level of satisfaction. That's the cost-benefit analysis that these authors, or in the Encyclopedia of Social Social Psychology, would say. That's how we do it. So, if we perceive partner satisfaction as being very high, right, then for us, our satisfaction is going to be very high. So that's very important to realize, right? If we perceive, let's talk about you. let's say that you perceive your spouse to be very dissatisfied in your marriage. It means that you're much more likely to be dissatisfied also. And if your partner perceives you to be very dissatisfied in your marriage, then it's likely that they are going to be dissatisfied as well. And so it contributes to their dissatisfaction. Alternately, if you are very satisfied with your marriage and you're communicating that with your spouse, then it's more likely to contribute to their satisfaction. So it's how they perceive or how you perceive one another in your marriage that leads to marital satisfaction. And then let's look at the other variable that we're talking about today, and that is marital commitment. And there are several different aspects or factors related to marital commitment. One of those three components is attraction. Devotion, satisfaction, we just talked about that, and love. How devoted are you to your spouse? How satisfied are you? How loving are you? And we probably will need at some point, and we will operationally define what love is. It's not just this emotion, the passion that we feel, but it's also the things that we do, the initiative that we take to demonstrate that. The scriptures say that when it comes to loving God, that faith without works is dead. Well, love without works is dead too, at least in the eyes of your spouse. So attraction is one of those factors that contributes to marital commitment. The second one is a moral sense of commitment, in that it's a personal responsibility that you made a commitment to someone, so to fulfill that commitment, and that marriage is an important social and religious institution. And so there is a moral element to it. We want to be moral people. We want to be perceived as good people. So keeping our promises to someone, the vows that we made to someone, is essential to that process. The third one is constraining component. If we were to end the relationship, if we were to divorce, there is a certain fear of social, financial, and emotional costs of relationship termination. If we were to divorce, what's it going to cost us? And for women, this is especially a concern because the cost for women is almost always higher, certainly in financial terms. And then you got to divide up the friends, and it's often for both husband and wife, it takes an extreme emotional toil when we go through a divorce, usually. So those are the three components, and it works a lot like satisfaction. When we perceive our partner to not be very committed to us, then likely we are going to reciprocate with a low level of commitment. But if we perceive our partner to be very committed to us, then we are going to reciprocate that and have a high level of commitment. And this also works in reverse. If your partner sees that you're very committed, then they're likely to be more committed as well. If they think you've got 1 foot out the door, then they're going to have 1 foot out the door as well. And I can tell you from working with couples for many years that this is true. This is almost always true. I can only think of 1 or 2 couples over the years where they showed up in my office. One of them, unbeknownst to the other, had a foot out the door, and the other one was begging to stay. Most of the time, people are self-protective, and if one person has a foot out the door, the other one has a foot out the door as well, just as a self-protective mechanism. So perceived marital satisfaction and perceived marital commitment affect our satisfaction and commitment as well. So let me tell you what I do and how I can help you if you are struggling in your marriage. I have what I call the Magnificent Marriage Mentorship. The Magnificent Marriage is this. It is a marriage that is a thing of beauty. It is the kind of marriage that God intended at creation. It is the kind of marriage that God intended in the garden. It's the kind of marriage that God intended between Adam and Eve before Genesis chapter 3, the fall. And when they separated themselves not only from God by sinning, but separated themselves from one another. And so here's what you can expect. You can expect improved communication. This is a major piece of what I do with my couples, because if you cannot communicate, then you cannot solve any of the challenges. You cannot overcome any of the challenges that you are facing. So many couples just do not communicate well. And part of that is they do not deal with conflict well. What I'm going to do is teach you a strategy for overcoming conflict, teach you the actual skills, the micro skills, everything that you will need to communicate better and communicate in conflict better. Part of that's what's going on with you, and part of that is how you communicate with your spouse. I'm going to teach you through that process, not only that, how to deepen your emotional intimacy with one another. How can you get to know one another better, deepen your friendship, and deepen the connection that you have with one another. As a result of this, you're going to have better sex. That's almost always a fringe benefit, so to speak. Not friends with benefit, but a fringe benefit of having better communication, being able to handle your conflict better, and deepening your emotional intimacy is that you will have better sex. And that's an issue for a lot of people in their marriages. They drift from one another emotionally, and that shows up in the bedroom. And we are going to show you how to get back together. A lot of times people struggle in their marriages because of past hurts, whether it's from their family of origin, whether it's from a previous relationship, whatever it may be. Sometimes people struggle in their marriage not because of what's going on in the marriage so much, but because of what happened to them prior to their marriage or even earlier in their marriage. And you get to a certain place in your life where what you want is just to live in a peaceful environment and have peace between you and the people around you. That's what you can expect from the Magnificent Marriage Mentorship Program. The mentorship program is not for everyone, and so this is why I say ask you if there's a good fit. If there's active abuse, then this is not the right program for you. And my teaching generally is not for an active abuse situation, and we'll talk about abuse in another time. But if there's active abuse, this is not the program for you. You need to get out of a dangerous situation. Out of a dangerous situation, and you need to get into a safe place. Is there an active affair? You cannot build your marriage, rebuild your marriage, if you're actively trying to tear it down. So there cannot be an active affair. Are both you and your spouse interested in being mentored? I do work with individuals, but this particular program is for couples. If you are an individual and you want to work on how you relate to your spouse, I'll be happy to talk with you about how we can do that as well. And then the last thing is, are you willing to commit the $1,000 in 2 months, 8 weeks, to improve your marriage? And I tell you the price right up front because I want you to know what that is, so that you know whether or not this is the time and I'm the person for you. I just feel like being upfront and transparent about how I work with people, what the financial investment is, and what the investment is in your relationship. So you have to be willing to commit both financially, emotionally, the time to this program. So if you are interested in getting mentored either as an individual or as a couple, send me a DM and we'll schedule a consultation and we'll go a little bit deeper and I can answer any of the questions that you might have about the Magnificent Marriage Mentoring Program that I offer. So, let me ask this question. If your spouse's marital satisfaction and commitment is, in part, dependent on their perception of your satisfaction with and commitment to your marriage, and we've just said all that is true based on the research, how can you increase their marital satisfaction and commitment? How can you increase the probability that they are more satisfied and that they are more highly committed to your marriage, to you as a person? Well, the way that you do that is you communicate. You communicate. Everything that you say and do must communicate your satisfaction and commitment to your spouse. Remember, it's their perception of your satisfaction and their perception of your commitment that influences their satisfaction and commitment. And so we have to share with our spouses that we are satisfied in our marriage, that we are happy, that when we do that cost benefit analysis, that we see more benefit than cost to the relationship. The relationship doesn't have to be perfect. It won't be perfect. There are no perfect marriages. Everyone has disagreements. Everyone has differences. The difference between healthy and unhealthy marriages is that in healthy marriages, they are able to address their concerns and they are able to recover from any differences or difficult situations or challenges more quickly and more satisfactorily for both people involved. And so everything that we do must communicate our satisfaction and our commitment to our spouse. So how do we do that? How do you communicate satisfaction and commitment? Well, there's two parts of it. There's the saying and there's the doing. And so I want to give you one technique for the things that you say. And if you want to really impact your spouse, what you need to do is express appreciation and gratitude every single day. You need to make it a priority. And each of you, if you husbands and wives are watching this together, are sharing this with one another, make it a habit. Make it a commitment to express appreciation and gratitude every day. It doesn't have to be something big and earth-shattering every single day. It can be something small. In fact, maybe the smaller the better. Many of these things are small, but when they're small and we express appreciation, it means that we're paying attention. It means that we are noticing. And that tells your spouse when we do that, or when you do that, that you're paying attention to what's going on in the relationship, in your home, with your children, with your parents, whatever it may be. You're expressing that appreciation and gratitude for how your spouse relates to you, interacts with the kids, takes care of their business, works hard, whatever it is, you can express gratitude. And you want to make sure that you're not falling into a rut by saying, I appreciate the same thing about you every day. But that doesn't mean that every few weeks or once a month or whatever that you can say the same thing. There may be something that you are trying really hard to really notice, and so you bring that to their attention. So, all that to say, speaking, what you say is important in letting your spouse know that you are satisfied and that you are committed to the relationship. The second thing is what you do. So we're going to express our communication. We're going to communicate both verbally and behaviorally. So one way that you can do this by doing is to be transparent and accountable. One of the things that comes up often, especially in couples that I work with who have experienced infidelity, is that they think that they can keep things hidden from one another and develop trust again. It does not work that way. You will never develop trust if you are not being transparent with one another. If you disappear for a few hours and refuse to talk about where you've been, or I've had a couple one time where one person in the couple disappeared for a week and used cash and would not communicate, and the spouse had no idea where they were for an entire week. Within the first year of marriage, it was very difficult. In fact, that couple did not make it. They got divorced because they could not rebuild the trust that was broken in that week. And there were other incidences too. That's just one example. So you have to be transparent and you have to be accountable to one another. And the second one is just be affectionate. Be affectionate. Now, some of you, most of you probably have heard of the love languages. And the love languages are great. And Gary Chapman lives really close to me. We live in the same town. I haven't had a chance to meet him, but by all accounts, he is a wonderful man. And I think that he would tell you that the love languages are really important because he wrote the book, but he would also tell you that there's more to it than that. We can use our love languages, and we should use our love languages, but that's one small piece of what it takes to make a marriage great, to make a marriage magnificent. And there are some ways that you can be affectionate physically or verbally with words of affirmation or physical touch. Those are two of the love languages. But there are other ways. So let me just suggest some ways that you might be affectionate. One is you can establish rituals of departure and reuniting. Like when you leave for work in the day, what do you do with your spouse? Do you give them a hug? Do you give them a kiss? How do you express your self as you head out the door, or as your spouse heads out the door for work? Very important to establish that kind of ritual. Research by Dr. John Gottman indicates that a 6-second kiss is a characteristic of happier marriages, marriages that are more satisfied. They are 6-second kiss. And not only that, a 20-second hug. So if you can kiss and hug for 6 seconds and 20 seconds, but you got to cut it off right then. No more than 6 seconds. So that's enough to be satisfied. And then a 20-second hug without kissing. So that's 14 seconds without kissing, right? Okay, I'm leaning a little extreme there. I give you permission if you're married to hug and kiss for more than 20 seconds a day. You can express affection that way. The other thing that Dr. Gottman's research suggests is that snuggling at night when you get in bed is a characteristic of happier, healthier marriages. So those are some ways that you can be affectionate with your spouse. Those are things that can tell your spouse that you are satisfied and committed. You know what happens when we get angry with our spouse? We distance. So when we unite, when we are physically close, it lets one another know that we are satisfied and committed. It also releases oxytocin, which is the chemical in our body that increases attraction to one another. So there's benefits in that way too, even at the chemical level within our bodies. So here's the thing though, sometimes there are discrepancies between what we say and what we do. And when what we are saying and what we are doing don't match, we always believe, and I know that you can fill in the blank. You can pause the video right here, make a comment down below, and let's see if you're right. But you know that when there's a discrepancy between what we say and what we do, we always believe what a person does. Always. Because the proof is really in the pudding, isn't it? And so if you're saying, hey, honey, I'm very satisfied with our marriage and I'm very committed to you, but your words do not reflect what you are doing, then your spouse is going to believe what you do, not what you say, and vice versa. You know this to be true. And so we must be congruent between what we say and what we do. So that is the basics of marital satisfaction and commitment. So I want you to leave a comment below. What are some other ways that you can communicate your satisfaction with and commitment to your marriage and to your spouse? I'd love to hear ways that you do that. What are ways that you communicate your satisfaction and commitment to your spouse? What are ways that they communicate their satisfaction and commitment to you? I'd love to hear that. Leave a comment below, and maybe I'll incorporate that into future videos or trainings or teachings when I do this in the future. Here are some ways that you can get in touch with me. You can send me a DM in Facebook. You can send me a DM in Instagram. You can leave comments on YouTube. You can join the Christian Marriage Inspiration Group on Facebook. But most importantly, you can follow me at Wade Arnold Coaching on Facebook, on Instagram. And right now, I'm working toward getting my membership or my followers on YouTube so great that I can actually rename my YouTube channel. So I would love to have you as a follower on my YouTube channel so that I can make my YouTube channel Wade Arnold Coaching so that everything is consistent. That's really important for me, my branding, to get my ministry out there. So I would love to work with you. If you would like to get in touch with me to learn more about what I do, how I can help you, or if you'd like for me to come to your church and do a presentation on what a magnificent marriage looks like, I'm open to doing that. I'm open to coming and doing some retreats as well. I'd love to work with you and with your church or with your organization. So until we meet again, I'll leave you with this, that your marriage is in better shape right now than it was when you woke up this marriage because you watched this video. Today is a great day for you to begin working toward your magnificent marriage. And so if you have been inspired by what you've heard today, please like and share this video so that others can be inspired as well. So until we meet again, God bless you, and let's work toward our magnificent marriages.